What's up, guys? Welcome back. It's Rob here. We are heading to the gym once again. So, another day, another workout. That's what we're doing. And I was just thinking about the videos that I've recorded in the past, and I listen to them sometimes, and I was listening to the audio quality, and it made me think maybe I should get a mic. Maybe I should just get a little USB-C mic that I can attach to the phone and I hope that would improve the audio quality substantially, right? Because I know at the very first episode I said I'm never gonna get any equipment or do anything to improve this, but it is funny how people are always trying to improve, myself included. It's just like a very human thing. We always want to make things better. And so, of course, like, I don't know how many episodes it's been, maybe 4 or 5. Of course, now that I've done this a couple of times, I want to make it better and improve it. And that's just such a human thing. And so maybe I'll give in to that. Maybe I will get a mic, and it would be real easy to just keep in the car and clip to my shirt or something and plug into the phone every time. It would not add much to this whole thing. But of course, after that, I've got to get a permanent camera set up and all kinds of stuff. So, of course, that's the way things are probably going to go. And it is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, to keep making things better, I think, is actually good. And it can be good in some ways, but in some ways it's not ideal, because it also means that we're never, I guess the word would be, content with what we're currently doing. Or if we are, it's for a very short time before we think about, well, how could we make this better? How could we improve? Maybe not everyone, but that's kind of how I think. And that's not to say that I'm unhappy with the way things are going, right? I'm relatively happy with, what I'm recording. I feel good about it. It's not like it's a super low quality thing. This is a reasonable phone to be recording on. And, I think it's decent quality, but it could be better. And to want to improve it kind of entails that I'm not content with it, right? Which, obviously, everything could almost always be better. And it is good to try to improve things, because then you end up finding yourself in a better situation in the future if you do go through with the improvements that you wanted to make. And that ends up leading to a better life for you. It ends up leading to a better life for those around you. And that's really positive. But at the same time, we're all, everyone alive today, or most people alive today, at least people in the United States, are pretty much living very lavish and luxurious lives compared to what people 1,000 years ago were living. And yet, a lot of people are still unhappy with their circumstances. They still think they don't have enough, and that gets to them. It gets to them mentally, and people are actually sad, even though, they're sad about their quality of life, even though their quality of life is, if you just look at things and measure them, a lot higher than someone might have had 1,000 years ago, just because, we have things like air conditioning. And, not everyone does, but I feel most people do. And at the very least, you can go to public places that have it and be comfortable during, it's not cold, it's not hot right now. It's pretty cool and temperate, but during the summers, it gets really hot here. This is North Carolina. It gets up to like 90 degrees, and it's really humid, and it's nice to be able to go into a cool environment. And I think that it's just human nature to take these things for granted and to try to make our lives even better than they already are, which is what made all of this possible in the first place. And I really appreciate all of my ancestors and other people's ancestors building all of the infrastructure that we now use in our society. And not just physical infrastructure, but social infrastructures. I mean, I'm sure that we've got less crime than there was, 200 or 300 years ago. I want to say there's probably less crime. We might hear about it more, just because of social media and that kind of stuff. But overall, things are better. Yet it seems like a lot of people are still unhappy, even though, I'm sure if you asked someone 100 years ago, would you like to live in this, or maybe 200 years ago, would you like to live in this world where we've got air conditioning and grocery stores that have all kinds of food? They've got food from China, they've got food from Mexico, they've got food from all these different countries that you probably didn't have access to in the past. And the work that we have to do, a lot of the times it's indoors and you're not sweating in the sun. You might be doing something kind of boring. You might be just typing on a computer all day. You might be in an office. You might be doing physical labor indoors, carrying bags and stuff. And, some people are still working outside in tough conditions, but they're probably aided by machinery that helps them do a lot more work. And maybe they don't have to do as much physical labor. They might lift some heavy thing onto a forklift and then the forklift moves it instead of them having to just carry this all the way themselves. And so we've got this higher quality of life that people hundreds of years ago would really envy and would say, yeah, I'll be happy if I had all of that. But because we've had it for longer than they never had it. But because we've had it for a lot of our lives, we are not happy with it. We think it's bad, and we think that, or some people think it's bad and that we need to improve it. I try my best not to think that anything is bad, but I do often think that things could be improved. And I think that's kind of one of the ways that you can go about being happier in life is accepting the way that things are and accepting that, these things that we've got, even though they're not perfect, they're dramatically better than what we had in the past in some aspects. I mean, in other ways, maybe it would have been better for us to be outside doing physical labor. We might have been physically healthier if we spent more time in the sun getting vitamin D and more time doing physical labor, lifting things. It's kind of like a workout, right? If you're farming all day, it's kind of like working out as opposed to sitting in an office, which can make you probably a little bit more sedentary and less healthy. So there are some trade-offs for sure. And those shouldn't be ignored. I mean, we should try to make those better too. But we are living very comfortable lives, you could say, compared to what the people of the past lived. And I always do my best to recognize that. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes something sucks. Like when the AC breaks, which does happen from time to time, during the summers, typically when it's really taxing the system and, it's 95 degrees and the AC is working as hard as it can to cool down a whole house and then, it blows and it's out for a few days. I mean, yeah, like it sucks, but that's what everyone had 200 years ago. There was no AC. And so I do my best to appreciate things while I have them, but to understand that things could be improved and to do my best to improve things. And I think for me, at least, that's one of the ways that I can kind of maximize my happiness and also maximize my future happiness, because I feel, even though I do my best to be happy with what I've got, I do notice that I feel happier and more content whenever I get something new, whenever I improve something. And so I think it's good to be doing both, right? I think it's good to be improving things, making things better, more seamless, and setting yourself up for success in the future, but also to appreciate what you've got in the moment. Because if you don't appreciate that, then I don't think you'll ever really appreciate anything that you've got, because we've already gotten to a point where things are so good relative to where they were a long time ago that I think if you're the kind of person that's going to just normalize at a level where you're unhappy, if you're going to normalize your circumstances and say, this is what I'm used to and I'm unhappy with it, then, I mean, when will you ever be happy? You'll be maybe for brief periods of time where you fix something and get something new, figure out a new way to do something. Maybe you'll be happy then. But that will then fade and lead to unhappiness if you're just the type of person who's unhappy in your current circumstance. I think, at least. I mean, and there's extremes, right? There are probably, actual circumstances that could be going on that warrant unhappiness. I mean, deaths in the family or severe injuries to yourself, I think, are very natural causes of unhappiness. But I think that a lot of the things that cause people to be unhappy are probably not as serious as they think in the moment. And I am absolutely someone who does that to themselves sometimes. I try my best not to, but it does happen. And it's not always easy to catch yourself doing that, to catch yourself being unhappy in a situation where things are actually going decently well, all things considered, and you're still unhappy. And it is just a trap that you can find yourself in. And it's a trap that you have to figure out how to get out of. And it isn't easy. I've 100% been caught doing that. I've caught myself doing this before, where, things could be a whole lot worse. Things are going relatively well, but there's one or two things that are peeving me. And I'll just fixate on those things and think about how bad those things are and really want to change those things, but there might not be a way that I can immediately do that, right? Just because that's the way the world is. It's sometimes things are slow to change. And I've caught myself for periods, sometimes it lasts for weeks if there's something sizable going on. I catch myself for weeks, I'll be pissed about something. And when I do catch myself, I really have to exert a lot of effort to bring myself back to a good state of mind. And sometimes that good state of mind doesn't last for very long. It might only last for a few hours before I catch myself again being pissed off about something. But next time I catch myself, I just try to bring myself back to baseline, which for me, fortunately, over the course of my life, my baseline has been quite happy, right? I've been quite pleased with the way things have gone. And I haven't lived the most privileged life. I haven't lived an incredibly unprivileged life either, right? I mean, I recognize that there are a lot of privileges just living where I am. And, my family wasn't super poor. We were definitely not super wealthy, but we weren't super poor. And so, I recognize that there are people who grow up in circumstances where things are much worse for them than they were for me. And that's got to be, it's probably an even tougher spot to come from and to figure out how to be generally pleased with things. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure it's a mindset for most things. Obviously, there are some extreme circumstances that are naturally going to make almost anyone unhappy, right? Like I said before, just to name a couple, deaths of friends or in the family, that's always horrible. Being incredibly or seriously injured or sick yourself, that's going to suck. Well, especially while that's going on and while you suffer some of the long-term consequences from that, that is going to suck. But those things, I think, eventually fade with time, and you can get back to your baseline, which is hopefully good. And if it's not good, if you don't have a good baseline, I believe that's something that you can cultivate for yourself. And it's something that you can cultivate psychologically, but you can also cultivate it physically by trying to change the chemicals that are entering your brain and to change your physical environment and your physical circumstances. And one of the best ways to do that is to work out. You get a lot of great endorphins when you work out, and I'm about to go work out. So, I'm going to feel those endorphins, and every time I work out, I feel good. And a lot of people don't work out. They don't end up getting that too often. And it's a very natural thing to do. Working out is, we wouldn't literally be going to the gym in the past, but we would have been doing intense physical labor. If we were hunting, carrying animal carcasses back, building a hut to live in, all kinds of stuff. So it's a very natural thing to do. And I think it's very important for people to do that for themselves, because that's just one thing. That's one physical way that you can get yourself out of a rut that I have found to be incredibly beneficial. And I think that most people would benefit from trying that out if they do find themselves in a tough circumstance. So that's all I was going to say for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Bye.